Okay. Hold on. Let me see if the volume thing is fixed. We'll wait till somebody else gets on here. Excuse me. No, no. Can you hear me, Bill? I'm sorry. Thank you. So you can hear me? Okay. I'm telling you, something is going. No, no. Shush, Ray. Something is going on with the damn StreamYard YouTube thing. Something. I don't know what. But like that last one, I wasn't muted. I checked the microphone before I came on. I'm telling y'all, Misty, ask Misty. Seriously, all joking aside, uh anyway, hi. Okay. So let me start over from the beginning. These are some tips on sharpening a knife. If you're interested, you don't have to watch this like any of the stuff. I just, in case some of y'all don't know, like like techniques or like what goes into it and everything. And I'll make this quick. This is my everyday pocket knife that I carry. Okay. And I did the whole wilderness survival thing uh, for years. I was, and martial arts and everything. And I was part of Ray. Look at Ray. I'm trying to do a damn video on tips on how to sharpen a knife, Ray. Shut up. Anyway, I did a lot of that stuff for years. And I eventually got into custom knife making. So again, I'll go over this. These are some of the knives that I've made. See the SJ there? This is a paratrooper, and they've got some spots on them where they've been like in storage for a long time. This is that's a hunter. Can't find the camera. There we go. This one actually has a hamon on it, if you can see it, where the edge is different from differential treating. This is a bushcraft knife. This is a bushcraft knife. Where's the damn camera at? There we go. Anyway. Oh, well. And this is a cat part. Yes, I made these. Made the sheaths too. These are stitched by hand, full grain saddle leather. But anyway, I spent about 2 years custom making knives and selling them. You know, that's how I made my living for a while. Went to knife shows and everything. Uh, anyway, so on sharpening a knife, whenever you make custom knives, you have to be decent at sharpening them. And I don't know. Thank you, Judy. I don't know if a couple of y'all saw it or not, but like this past week, wherever it is, I cut myself on the thumb twice in the same spot, checking to see if a knife was sharp enough, which never happens. But anyway, thank you, Deb. So going into sharpening a knife, first of all, number one, what is the knife made out of? Is it a super steel? Some of the modern super steels that we have, they are very, very hard and very tough. And the crystals that forms on the edge of the knife, that's right, yes. I sent a picture to Joe Pass today. He sent me this shirt. Love this shirt. Uh, that's cool, Northern California. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, Joe Pass. And if y'all don't watch the Squatching Cowboy, you should, because he is no bullshit and he's awesome. Love Joe. The super steels that we have today, this is a D2. So this is a tool steel. It's way more than, hold on, I'm sitting right in front of the knife. So, like, if you're talking about like a chef's knife, something that you use for cooking, these are typically made out of stainless steel, so they can go in the dishwasher. Stainless steel is cheap, for lack of a better term. It gets really brittle and it can break real easy. It will take a sharp edge because it hardens properly. This, hold on, I'll show you one. Now, this is a professional grade slicer, and this is probably a tool steel. So the difference between tool steels and stainless steel junk is that the tool steels have other stuff in them, like molybdenum, more silicone, higher nickel content to help make it harder and all that kind of stuff. You have to know what your knife is made out of. That's first and foremost. So, like a lot of these that are like wilderness bushcraft knives are made out of tool steel, which is not plain carbon steel. It has other stuff added to it to make it corrosion resistant, but it can still rust fairly easy if you don't clean it off. But the reason that a lot of bushcraft knives are made out of tool steel or plain carbon steel, I don't know if anybody is going to know what I'm talking about, but the old school kitchen knives, I cannot think of what they were called. They were called Old Hickory or something like that. They were plain carbon steel and they would rust, but they would take a hell of an edge. The old case knives, Mike, the old ones were made out of plain carbon steel. So plain carbon steel and tool steel is soft enough that even whenever it's heat treated properly, and we're talking about like in the 60 Rockwell area, you can sharpen it with rocks that you find out in nature, like sandstone, granite, stuff like that. Anyway, but for all knives, even this is a cheap little like Amazon paring knife, right? Made in China, cheap. It'll take an edge, but it gets dull real quick. So if you have knives in your kitchen, if you went out, and I'm not knocking anybody, is it Old Hickory? Yeah, that's what I thought they were called. I can't remember exactly. Those were great knives. But if you went out and bought like $100 set of knives, they're probably fairly cheap. Have you seen the knife sharpeners that had the little carbide thing in there where you go like this and sharpen them? Do y'all know what I'm talking about? Anyway, whenever you do that, whenever you use these little carbide blades to sharpen a knife, first of all, this is set at an exact angle. I think that these are set on like 14 degree, I think. But what they do is they pull metal off of the edge until it's all even and make it sharp. That is not the same thing as sharpening with like an actual sharpening stone. And it thins the blade, it deteriorates the blade every time you sharpen in one of these kind of things. So this one has diamond stones on both sides. It's still cheap. This is a better diamond sharpener. This is a Arkansas. These are Arkansas. You need soft, medium, and hard. Then you get into the expensive stuff like Japanese whetstones. This is a Blue Mountain. I think this is a medium. This feels like a medium. But anyway, sharpening is all about the technique, though. These are whetstones. Fat. Arkansas are whetstones. The Japanese are whetstones. And I'm going to touch on the difference between water and oil. But anyway, no matter what stone you're using, it's all about the angle and the amount of pressure that you put on it. So for something like this that I use every day, it doesn't need an extreme angle. I wish I had like a whiteboard or something that I could show you on, but the angle, the actual edge, the primary bevel that is used to cut, sometimes it's really narrow, like for a chef's knife. Sometimes it's extremely narrow for something that you might end up doing chopping with. Think like a machete. It's thicker, wider. And if I had I don't have one of the other, I forget what it's called, but where the edge comes all the way down, there is no secondary bevel. It's just one primary bevel. Scandi grind. For something like a Scandi grind, normally it starts out very thick and then goes to an extreme point. That's Scandinavian grind, but we're getting into other stuff. What I'm trying to explain, though, is like if I'm sharpening a pocket knife, I'm holding it at a different angle, not as flat. I'm holding it, if you can see, I'm holding it about 12 degrees or so. If I am sharpening a chef's knife, I'm holding it even flatter, about 7 degrees, 9 degrees, something like that right there. Okay. So different angles for different knives depending on what they're going to be used on. If you're talking about something that is going to slice cleanly through like a thick roast or whatnot, you want that thing razor sharp. You want less resistance. So the wider, where are we at? The wider the angle, the more resistance. Thinner the angle, less resistance, because there's less for it to go around, right? Anyway, I hope this makes sense. I should do a more professional video on this. But anyway, on average, you're going to be holding somewhere between 7 and 12 degrees. So think of the thickness of like a nickel between the back of the knife, right there, between a nickel and maybe like an old school eraser, you know, the pink erasers, the big block ones, you know, were like 1/4 inch thick. Anyway, so on this knife, There's no good way to show this. I don't know. Will that work? Can y'all see there? Okay. On this knife, I'm going to hold this at about 12 degrees and just pull straight. Nothing complicated. Pull straight. Then I'm going to switch sides. Pull straight. Now, to do the curved part, I'm going to angle the knife and have to raise at the tip because I'm trying to get that same angle. The angle that is here is not the same down here. So when it hits this part, I have to start raising. Just like that, okay? And I just sharpened this a couple days ago, so it's pretty sharp. Now, if I was doing a Santoku chef's knife, which is fairly straight, I'm just going to pull the whole length at one time. You can just do like this section, and here you're putting pressure, let up. Put pressure, let up. Put pressure, let up. You could just do each section individually, or you can pull the whole thing. Okay? Was that clear? All right. Then we have stuff like this, a handheld. On the handheld sharpeners, and these do a great job. I carry this in I have like 3 of these, and I carry them in my packs for like whenever I'm out in the field in case I would have to touch up a knife for something. On this, it is easier to hold the knife and get your angle and go down the knife than it is to hold this and move the knife. The knife, you want the same angle on both sides, and that's where people mess up. If you get off by more than like 2 or 3 degrees, whenever you got a stone, whatever you're sharpening with, if I go at like, let's say 7 degrees on this side, and then I go 12 degrees on this side, it's never going to get sharp. You have to hold the same angle. You are removing metal and forming crystals. The crystals are what do the cutting. So if you have something that's made out of super steel, like take a CM 154, that stuff is hard. Like, it's really hard to sharpen by hand. The only thing that's going to sharpen that adequately by hand is a diamond stone. An Arkansas stone, a wet stone, is not going to sharpen it properly. It's not, the metal is too hard for you to remove the metal evenly and draw it down and form those crystals. But on all these knives that I have right here, well, this one is D2. So this is a tool steel. A lot of my handmade knives are tool steel. You got to put more pressure. On plain carbon steel, back in the old days, most of the knives that were made like 60 years ago, they were plain carbon steel. They might have had a little bit more, stuff put in them going into the stainless steel range, different chemicals like nickel. But nickel is very hard. That's why stainless steel knives, they kind of suck because they get really hard and brittle. They'll take an edge, but they break real quick. anyway, for most of the knives that are out there available nowadays for pocket knives and, you know, anything like this, like bushcraft knives, whatever you get, they're probably not going to be super steel unless you pay a lot of money for them. If you pay for a $250 Spyderco that's made out of CM154, it takes a long time for the edge to dull, but then you really have to work to sharpen it. So it's kind of a pro and con kind of thing. The tougher they make these steels, the longer it takes for them to get dull. But when they do, you really have to work to sharpen them. It's like a diesel motor. Diesel motor's going to run a hell of a long time, but when it has to be fixed, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg, and you got to take it somewhere because the average person can't work on diesel motors. The average person. But anyway, so going back to the knife sharpening thing, it's easier to hold the knife and go along the knife because you have better control over something like this than you do trying to hold this at the exact same angle. It's a whole lot easier to hold this firmly and just go down each side. I never do it like this. I turn it around when it's time to do it on that side. I'm just trying to show y'all. But anyway, and that's how you get a sharp knife. And then you don't have to go through the soft, medium, and hard. You know, if you only need a touch up, you can just use the hard stone or whatnot. It's 3/4. 3/4. Yeah. Depending on, yes, traffic African, the traffic African. Yeah, you can use a bunch, but none of that is going to matter if whenever you go down the edge, look, if the quarters are here, right here where you start, if you start changing your angle, it's not going to work. It's practice, y'all. I mean, there's no easy way to say it. It's practice. Practice of the angle until it becomes muscle memory. And a lot of times you have to reset the edge of knives that you buy out in the world. Like if you're carrying a pocket knife and you use it every day and you constantly have to resharpen it, eventually you're going to reset the edge to the angle that you naturally do. Now you're trying to control what angle you hold that at, but you're going to end up readjusting, resetting the primary bevel. Now let's talk about two more things and then I'll be done. This is a really expensive laminated caliphon because I cook a lot. Using a steel on kitchen knives. A steel is not sharpening the knife. It is resetting the crystals, whatever crystals are left, on the very edge of the knife. Eventually, you get to a point where you have to sharpen the knife again. But this is more along the lines of honing a knife. These grooves orient the crystals on the cutting edge that you can't see. You can see it with a microscope. And like on some of my customs, I've sent them off and had some pictures sent back so I could see, like, whenever I was heat treating, how big the crystals got and all that kind of stuff. On this, you're holding the knife at the same degree that you sharpened it at. So on this, you're not putting a ton of pressure. You are not sharpening the knife. You're not removing metal. You are resetting the crystals on the edge so that they're all oriented in the same direction. And then we get into actual honing. So, look here. I know somebody's going to make a comment, but this is why I wear a full grain leather belt, is because once you have sharpened a knife, when I had a restaurant and bar, my knives were expensive. Had a knife sharpening service, came once a month. Yes, I used to do that for restaurants around here, Ray, because I got a $3,000 belt grinder, meant for making knives, so it was easy for me. Doing it by hand would suck, but if you've got a yes, strapping, but it's just in general. This is honing. This is honing an edge. You don't have to do it with a strap. You can do it with a piece of leather. You could do it actually with blue jeans. You could do it like on your leg of your pants, but it's not going to do as good as the leather. The leather you can actually get some pressure on. And if I was doing this professionally, like on any of these, I've got a block that I have a 1/4 inch thick piece of leather, full grain saddle leather on, that I put polishing compound on. And then you go the same way as you sharpen the knife. Now with strapping, stropping, whatever you want to call it, it's honing really, but well, anyway, you want to hold. Can y'all see it this angle? We're going to go backwards, but you're going to hold at the same angle that you sharpened at. And what happens is the grain of the leather reorients the crystals on the cutting edge. It doesn't do, I shouldn't say it doesn't do as good of a job. It does a really good job. For certain knives, I would do stropping. For other knives, I would use the what do you call these things? A steel. I would use steel. So if I was doing cutting like kitchen knives, I would use steel all day long. It's all about the angle. The angle has to be the same. If you can get that in your head, that both sides have to meet at as close to a perfect angle as possible, you are forming crystals. Whenever you sharpen a knife, you are removing metal, and the hard crystals that are on the very edge is what causes it to cut. So the whole point of sharpening is taking a piece of hardened steel, getting it thin enough to where you're pulling off metal, no matter which way you do it. Even if you did this cheap thing, these carbide blades, you are removing metal that is out of place, has become thick, whatever, has gotten a wave in it. You're removing the metal until you get down to a perfect angle. Now, how wide that angle is depends on what you're going to be cutting. But on something like this, the angle is extremely tight. It's very thin. On something like this, it's a little bit wider. So on this, about a 7 degree, maybe a 9. This is about a 12 degree. This is, I make these about 12 to 14. But anyway, you'll find the middle ground. It depends on what they're going to be used for. If you're going to beat a knife, if you're going to baton a knife through a piece of wood, it needs to be thicker. If you're trying to slice through meat cleanly, it needs to be very thin, less resistance. Hope that makes sense. And all of these stones, Japanese water stones, Arkansas, whetstones. They all do the same thing. Diamond stones. You want to use the diamonds on the super steels. You can use it on other stuff, but you can use the diamond on anything. But if you've got a knife made with any of the super steels, you really need a diamond. Either that, or you need a super expensive belt grinder. My kid's walking in the background, and she's wearing a hoodie inside the house. Anyway, whatever. Kids nowadays.
Because I was outside, it's freezing.
It's not that cold. I was hoping that made sense to all y'all. I'm not going to try to show you how sharp it is because I'll just end up cutting myself. Woo. See the hair? Where's it at? I can't tell which way I'm going. I'll just end up cutting myself again. By the way, did you know, here, I'll close on this. Did you know that whenever you're doing your thumb on the edge of a knife to see how sharp it is, you know that grip that you feel? What it is if the crystals are aligned enough, they get real flat on the very edge. You feel that between the ridges of your fingerprint on your thumb. You know, your dermal ridges, they go up and down. That's what that grippy is. It's so thin, it's going between the ridges, your dermal ridges, like on your thumb. Anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there. All right, y'all. I hope everybody got something from this. We can go more into detail as we go into fall and everything. Misty and I'll do more stuff where it's like, you know, Misty makes like tinctures and ointments and does the plants and the animals and all that kind of stuff. She just found chicken of the woods mushrooms today, which I'm so jealous of because I love chicken of the woods mushrooms. But anyway, we'll go more into like all this kind of stuff, shelters. I would say make a fire, but every time I try to do it live, I fuck up. But, you know, it's what it is. At least I'm being real and showing you how it actually is. I tried to make fire by friction again today and could not do it. I don't know. I'm messing something up. I'll figure it out though. Anyway, talk to y'all later. Y'all have a great Saturday.